What is going on, Dragon Ball fans? Welcome back to another Dragon Ball fan manga review, where today we're going to be reviewing the fan manga entitled Dragon Ball AF, which of course is a fan manga following the events of Dragon Ball GT, and which also introduces us to Goku's third half son known as Xicor. And for many years now I've been reviewing and looking over fan-made Dragon Ball concepts and mangas, so today we'll be diving into a brand new chapter of this manga as we start Dragon Ball AF's manga chapter number 4 off with the resurrection of Broly, and we see how Vegeta has arrived, with Broly having to say, Vegeta, is this the living world? With Vegeta so casually having to say, of course it is, because they needed Broly to be revived in order to use his energy. Just in case for those of you out there who haven't watched my Dragon Ball AF manga chapter number 3 review, they needed Broly's energy in order to revive the Dragon Balls, and we see how Broly is shocked that he's still alive, and we see how out of nowhere he has these memory recaps of Goku, and he says, I ain't gonna let you get away with this no matter what, with Goku having to punch Broly in the chest, and then recapping the second event with Gohan, Goten, and Goku having to blast Broly with the Kamehameha, and Vegeta says, so, your memories of when you were killed are resurfacing now, huh? And Broly's beginning to lose his mind, and then out of nowhere he just transforms into the legendary Super Saiyan, and he charges at Vegeta, and keep in mind at this very point, Broly is significantly weaker than anyone there, because it's been many years since he's actually been revived, and Vegeta transforms as well, and as Broly rushes Vegeta, Gotenks appears out of nowhere, and he says, wait a minute, Broly, stop, and we see how Broly stops, and he says, who the hell are you? With Vegeta having to tell Gotenks, I figured that you were responsible for this, and they were, but before anything can actually even happen, we see how Broly rushes towards Gotenks and saying, don't interfere, and Broly becomes, enraged on the idea that after what Goku had done to him, and Gotenks becomes a Super Saiyan 3, and now we see legendary Super Saiyan Broly versus Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, in which we see how Gotenks uses the Galactic Donut just to hold Broly in place, just to talk to him, and with that, of course, Gotenks is getting very cocky, but then we pan it over to Android 17, and we see how he's accompanied by Android 8 as they're hunting for animals, and we see how 17 fires a shot and misses, and saying, damn, what did I do? With Android 8 having to say, there's hardly any animals around, the earth has been kind of funny for a little while, something bad has happened, and we see how 17 says, well, what are you talking about? With Android 8 having to reply by saying, probably another battle has started, with 17 having to say, man, this planet just keeps getting itself into trouble, and we see how they're talking, they're chit-chatting, and Android 8 says, aren't those guys who are fighting out there your friends? And 17 having to say, we're just acquaintances, it doesn't really matter, and Android 8 is saying, aren't you gonna help her? With Android 17 saying, I'm not gonna, it's not like she's gonna go looking for me or anything like that, so he doesn't really care about helping his sister, but even with that, it's pretty cool to see how 17 and Android 8 are having to bond, even if it's going out hunting, with Android 8 having to say, that wasn't your fault, number 18 must understand that, and 17 having to say, if you want to go, just go, you can go on your own. I mean, at this rate, she doesn't even know that I brought her back to life, so I don't really care what happens, I'm just gonna stick to myself. So, he's trying to make it seem like he's the one that brought her back to life, and he's the one that did all the things for her that she doesn't understand, and he doesn't want to go out of his way to help her anymore because he feels as if she's not going to be helping him or looking for him. But then we pan back to Capsule Corporation as we see Broly pretty much tied up on this pillar, and we see how Bra comes by, and she says, here's some food, and he's so angry. Broly is so mad that first of all, he got captured, so this is a captured Broly we're talking about here, but then we see Bra walk on over and put the food down and saying, you're a Saiyan 2, so you must be real, so be a good boy and eat. So she's trying to get him to eat, and he's really pissed off. He wants to break free, in which case he does. He kind of grabs her ankle, and she begins to panic, and he says, I'll kill you, and she replies by saying, I'll tell you right now, the era when you were the strongest is long over, and we see how she completely kicks him away. She pretty much smacks his hand away, and she says, nowadays, anyone who's a Saiyan can become a Super Saiyan, you've got no choice but to listen to what we have to say, and Broly begins to get enraged, he begins to get angry, but of course he can't really do much, so he pretty much settles down, and Bra having to say, you see, so she pretty much bitched out Broly and saying anyone who's a Saiyan now can become a Super Saiyan, but then we pan back to Goku in the Divine Realm, and Goku having to say, a Super Saiyan from the past, why did they do that? And it looks like they're saying, it looks like a Super Saiyan from the past may have been resurrected through Purunga's power, and Omega Omega having to say those on Earth are trying one method in reviving the Dragon Balls. And Goku says, damn it, so either way, we can't do anything but wait for those Dragon Balls to be revived. And Omega having to say, that holds, for we are 7 dragons and you are just Goku. And then we see how Omega says there is one person here who isn't a resident of the Kaioshin realm, that being Pikkon. And we see how everyone looks over on Pikkon. They're trying to say, yo man, you don't really belong here, so you're not really supposed to be here. And Omega having to say, you're not divine, you're not a part of the dragons, so you have to go. And we see how Broly has these memory recaps of everything that's happened before. We see how Paragus is there, with Paragus having to say, alright Broly, you have to listen to me. We must dispose of the royal family who sent us to exile, as well as the other Saiyans besides you and me. And we have that memory recap of Broly having to fight Goku over and over and over again. And we see how finally, you know, Broly manages to bust out of the chains that he was held captive in. And we see how Bulma walks in and she's saying, wait a minute, what the heck? And Broly not wasting any time in charging towards Bulma. And as he's about to hit Bulma, we see how Vegeta appears and he grabs Broly's punch. And we see how Broly says Vegeta, with Vegeta having to say, you want to kill me, right? Well then get stronger, because the way you are now, you couldn't kill me or even Trunks. So he's making light of this. He grabs Broly's punch and he's making him seem like such a weakling. And then Vegeta having to say, come on. And we see how Broly lets go, and Broly having to stick his hand out and he aims it right towards Vegeta. But instead of blasting Vegeta, he blasts a giant hole in the Capsule Corporation, and Broly having to say, Vegeta, I'll kill you no matter what. And we see how Bulma's like, now hang on, just wait a minute. Like what's the point of breaking into our house? And Vegeta says, just try it, and Broly flees away. Broly realized that Vegeta was right in saying that he stands no chance against literally anyone there. And we see how Vegeta's standing there with Bulma having to say, wait a minute Vegeta, you know, is it alright to let him go? And Trunks having to come in and saying, Dad, don't tell me that Broly got away. And Bulma having to say, yeah, I mean Vegeta pretty much let him go, with Trunks having to say, we needed Broly to revive Goku. And Vegeta having to say, how many times do I have to tell you, we don't need to rely on Kakarot, I'll take care of that bastard Xicor myself. And Trunks having to say no this time, and Vegeta having to cut him off and saying, just go to the gravity room, leave me alone. So Vegeta keeps telling Trunks, we can do it on our own, we don't need Goku's help. And Trunks having to say, it's hopeless, forget it Broly, not even Dad will help us. It's crazy because now he realizes that Vegeta is too prideful to even allow Broly to live on just to revive Goku. And then we pan back to Goten having to go out for dates. He's enjoying himself with the girl that he's dating and having to say, I hate people who forget their promises. And it seems like he pretty much forgot. And we see how Pan is sitting behind Goten, and she's becoming really aggravated on the idea that Goten seems to be one of the only people who isn't taking this serious. But meanwhile, we pan back to Broly as he's observing the city from a giant skyscraper, and we see how he's beginning to get really angry, and his power and his rage is starting to get the best of him. And we see flashbacks of Paragus and saying, don't think at all, just abandon all your thoughts, Broly. And Broly having to get down the ground and saying, please stop, Dad. And he sticks his hand out and he begins to try to charge up his energy and saying, trash, be gone. And that's when Pikkon comes out of nowhere and saying, so you're Broly, huh? And Pikkon's there and saying, huh, so you're looking pretty bloodshot right now, what's going on with you? And Broly having to say, what? Who the hell are you? And Pikkon having to say, well, it's a long story. And Broly having to say, don't give me that crap, why are you here? And Pikkon having to say, simply put, I'm here so I can persuade you. And Broly having to say, what? And Pikkon having to say, we're sorry to bring you back from the dead like this, but you've got to help us revive Son Goku. And that pretty much triggered Broly in saying, Goku, you mean Kakarot? That's when Pikkon says, yep. And that's when Broly says Kakarot's no longer in this world, with Pikkon having to say that's right. And that's when Broly begins to laugh. This guy is absolutely crazy. He's laughing and saying, so Kakarot's dead, is he? That just means that I have to kill Vegeta. Then I'll be the #1 Saiyan. So it looks like he has like this crazy, you know, morbid, like twisted train of thought where he's happy that Goku's dead, but he wants to kill Vegeta now. And Pikkon having to say, no, the thing is, something terrible has happened. And Pikkon having to continue to say, so you got to cooperate with us, we need you to revive Goku. And that's when Broly says, revive Kakarot? Did you really think I'm gonna help you do that? And Pikkon having to say, well, we didn't think you'd be that easy to convince, with Broly having to say, I don't understand, I've been brought back then, but I'm doing things my way, so I don't care. And he sticks his hand out and saying, first, I'm gonna kill these annoying Earthlings. And Pikkon having to say, alright then, kill as many as you want after you defeat me, with Broly having to say, confident are you? And he charges at Pikkon Pikkon as legendary Super Saiyan, and then we see Pikkon and Broly fight, and then that's when Pikkon says let's change locations because he doesn't want to risk, you know, hurting anyone else there, and we see how Pikkon throws Broly all around. Broly doesn't really have a chance with Pikkon because Pikkon's been training with Goku for a very long time, in which we see Pikkon have the upper hand on Broly as he's punching him all throughout the ground, he's kicking him, and we see how Pikkon has the upper hand on Broly, and then right towards the very end, we see how Pikkon says, why are you so frustrated? Is it the hatred for Goku or the jealousy of Vegeta? And Broly having to stand up and saying, shut up. And then Pikkon says, why do you hate your fellow Saiyans? And Broly having to say, shut up, and he charges at Pikkon, but he can't hit him, and Pikkon having to say, try asking yourself, what's the source of your frustration? He's trying to calm him down, and Broly keeps saying, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, and we see going back to where Paragus was actually back on the original planet where Broly was still around, and he says, Broly's nothing but a pawn, I'll use him to become the new Super Saiyan King, and we see how Pikkon even says, you don't know your own frustration, do you? And we see how Broly's on the ground, he's struggling, he seems to be controlled by something, by the thoughts of Paragus, and Pikkon having to say, open up, Broly, open your thoughts, and all throughout this entire battle, Broly just keeps yelling out, shut up, 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 and no matter what happens, we see how he even exhausts himself, and we see how Broly falls down, and even then, Broly says, hey, where's Kakarot right now? And Pikkon having to say training in the heavenly realm, and Broly's on the ground trying to catch his breath, and he says, is he stronger than you? And that's when Pikkon says, yeah, vastly stronger than me. And Broly having to say, I see. And Broly, while he's on the ground catching his breath, he says, I'm only interested in fighting. And Pikkon having to say, yeah. And Broly having to say, I'll surpass Kakarot and Vegeta, and then I'll kill them with my own hand. And that's when Pikkon says, is that so? With Broly having to say, my goal will not change. So right then and there, we see how he's finally calmed down, but even while going back to Capsule Corporation, it says a month begins, and we see how Goten and Trunks are training together within the gravity room while Vegeta is also there observing, and we see how Trunks says Goten's gotten really into it because Goten's getting really serious about this, with Vegeta having to also witness Pan fight Bra, so Pan's training with Bra, Goten is training with Trunks, and Vegeta's there just meditating, and we see how Bra and Pan, which is pretty cool by the way, are going at it, and we see how it's pretty cool to watch even Hercule observe this, because for the first time we have two female Saiyans actually going blow for blow, even to the point where Bra punches Pan outside of the building, and these two females are really going at it. So we have Goten and Trunks training, we have Bra and Pan, and it looks like Bra and Pan are a little bit more intense than Goten and Trunks because it looks like they both want to also increase their power vastly, and Hercule is just losing his mind because these two females are destroying the entire house that he's in. And then we pan back to Krillin on Roshi's island, and we see how Krillin is also there, and he says alright, and he also begins to kind of like, you know, practice his techniques and his forms, and we see how 18 comes and she says, what are you up to? With Krillin having to say, sorry, did I wake you up? I figured that maybe, just maybe, I might do something helpful, and 18 having to say, well, let's see what you got. And then towards the end of this, we see how Krillin and 18 are actually sparring outside while Roshi's sleeping, and we see how even then, you know, Krillin is not getting tired, but 18 says, it's not like I really needed that anyway, and we see how Krillin and her actually having a moment to where they're kind of practicing at the same time, but not so much so because they're bonding, but also we see something come out of 18's, you know, necklace. She has like this pendant, and then we pan back to Android 17, and he's also holding the same pendant, the same necklace in his hand, and he puts it underneath his shirt. So obviously it's this necklace, it's this pendant that kind of draws them together and bringing them understanding. But then we pan back to Broly and Pikkon, and Broly is just getting destroyed by Pikkon because he emerges from the water, he's all tired, he's all pissed off, but even then Pikkon realizes that there's maybe some hope here in convincing Broly. But then we pan back to Omega Shenron sparring with base form Goku, and base form Goku is doing very well even against Omega, and we see the Shadow Dragons talk, and they're saying maybe we should be training too, with one of them having to say, does it matter, we're all originally one anyway, we should just leave the training up to those two. And we see how Nova and Ice talk as well, they're saying, but will we be able to defeat this Xicor guy? Never mind that, we shouldn't even know if Goku can even be revived. And Porunga comes there, and Porunga's saying the day of resurrection is definitely at hand. So for the first time we even have Porunga in the flesh and saying, all conditions have been met, and everyone's shocked that Porunga is there, and Porunga having to say, now all we have to do is wait. So Porunga knows about Broly because Porunga was the one to bring him back, and Nova having to say, what are our chances? And Porunga having to say, I do not know, but there is one thing I can't say for sure. If you all lose, then the living world and the afterlife are going to be destroyed. Heaven, hell, Earth, the Kaioshin realm, the Dark Demon realm, and even those in the Divine realm will all be no more. And we see how Goku and Omega are really going blow for blow, and even so a month passes by, and even at that very point we have a month go by, and we see how there are lots of people hovering around the Z Sword. We have, army men, we have troopers, Hercules there, and Vegeta and Trunks arrive. Everyone arrives at the battlefield because they're staring at the sword, and they understand that now it's finally time. And we see how, Trunks even says, father has trained for 5 years, and Krillin having to say 5 years. Vegeta has definitely trained for 5 years within the gravity chamber, within the time chamber, and then right then and there, the sword begins to crack, the sword begins to chip, and that's when, we see Hercule in the background saying, hang in there, guys, with, Vegeta having to say, get your ass out of here, Xicor, now, and the sword finally breaks in two, and we see how out of nowhere someone emerges from the sword, and everyone on Earth feels this energy, with Xicor having to come out and say, you all are going to pay for this, you miserable insects. And Dragon Ball AF ends off right there. It's sad enough because Toyable never continued with a chapter number 5. Hopefully one day we'll get to see a continuation of this. Of course, Xicor emerges from the Z Sword, and that's when the great battle begins. And of course, I think that this manga chapter definitely covered the premise of having to focus more on convincing Broly, because Broly seems to have all this frustration, all this anger towards Goku for unknown reasons, and even then after finding out that Goku is dead, we see how he even targets Vegeta, in which Pikkon tries to convince him, and I think that overall Goku realizes that even training with Omega Shenron, that this threat is very great, because if they lose on Earth, everyone else is going to be destroyed. So post your comments down below, guys. What are your overall thoughts on this manga chapter? What are your overall thoughts on Broly's resurrection? What are your overall thoughts on Xicor having to be free? What are your overall thoughts on Vegeta having to train for 5 years? Post your comments down below, guys. Thank you all for watching. If you guys are Dragon Ball fans, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That way you guys are always notified with all this Dragon Ball news, information, updates, and discussions. If you guys love Dragon Ball, make sure to also go ahead and slap the video up with a like. Tune back in for more, and I'll be seeing you all in the next Dragon Ball fan manga review. Take it easy, guys, and God bless. Peace.